Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, if the listeners are watching, if the watchers are watching on YouTube, we've got a bit of a new setup going on here.
And you've brought your finest tracksuit pants to the party.
Oh yeah, uniform.
Yeah.
I am repping the Centre for Healing top though.
You are very much. Yeah, we're in Myndfit HQ. We're in my office. And you've bought all the bells and whistles, and it's crystal clear. We can see everything on that camera.
Yeah, I know. I think we're just having a bit of a play around with it today, but I think if we get the setup right, it'll come through nicely.
I think this is it. I think we've figured it out.
Awesome, mate. Well, we've got about half an hour today. It's going to be a shorty, but we're going to make it very
short potty,
impactful,
profound.
Yeah. Profound and profane, hopefully.
So we're going to, less is more. I had a client the other day, and he doesn't speak often, but when he speaks,
it has weight.
People listen.
Yeah.
So let's give our weighty words today.
All right, it's a weighty word podcast. What do you want to talk about? You got a topic?
I do have a topic. The power of the mind. Wow. I'm totally getting a synthesizer in here one day.
Yeah, it'd be great if we like a radio show. Yeah, you could play the different sounds. Yeah. Don't put ideas in my head because I'll fucking come with one next time.
I'm saying we're going full Howard Stern show. Getting all the props. Yeah, I just thought the power of the mind. I've been, as tends to happen, we have waves of themes with clients, and I think what we've been talking about is the people, I guess, don't understand how powerful a machine, or how powerful a computer, or how powerful a creator this brain is. And when we leave it untrained and to its own devices, it can be very powerful on a not pleasant end of the spectrum. So,
well, you've brought up one of the moments for you, when you were going through agoraphobia, couldn't leave the house, and there was that moment you had where you were trying to, reaching for the door handle and couldn't turn it, and you thought, my God, how powerful my mind isn't allowing my physical body to turn a door handle.
Yeah, my mind literally disabled my
Yes.
body, and because of the anxiety, and so a chemical in my brain disabled my physical being.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's incredible, and I think it's a good topic at the minute. Obviously, we have people from all around the world, like our Iceland listeners. Hello.
Shout out to Iceland.
I'm bringing up our Iceland listeners every episode. I love it. Obviously, we're based here in Melbourne, Australia, and a lot of people's mental fitness is being tested at the minute because we have half the country in lockdown and been in lockdown for an extended period of time. And we've spoken about this before, but I know I'm just having people reach out to me almost daily, if not through the business, but just like an old acquaintance. Like one reached out today, an old acquaintance out of nowhere, mate, I'm struggling, I need to talk to someone. And that's just happening so regularly at the minute because we have, I suppose, these mental capabilities which we've been getting by, but then these external circumstances have been thrown upon us, and for a lot of people that's proving too much.
Yes, and so I often talk about the body needs to meet resistance in order to get stronger. You've been to the gym today, leg day, you've got wobbly legs.
Underneath these trackies I have very wobbly legs.
There's tree trunks in there, compared to my twigs and sticks. And so too does the mind. The mind needs resistance. Don't pray for an easy life, pray the ability to endure a difficult one, is a Stoic quote. And I think what we're seeing, what we're noticing is through COVID and through all this, a few things, but really we've had it so good for so long. We've had some hiccups, we have some bushfires and some this and that, but really our liberty has existed for such a long time. We've had this inordinate amount of freedom which we've become very conditioned to, but now that's being, I'm not going to use the word taken away from us, but it's been compromised. Yeah, it's been compromised, and people are really going into shock. They're getting fight, flight, and there's a lot of fighting out there.
Yeah, well, I notice that in myself, my nervous system getting very activated, even just going on social media and that kind of thing, because there's a lot of division at the minute, and
Yes.
I get quite, I suppose, activated, not so much if someone has a different opinion to me, but just the division itself.
Yep.
Because I can see it, especially the last month or so, I can just see the
Observing
division.
conflict.
Yeah, it's like there's the people on one side, people on the other. They're strong in their beliefs, and then a lot of what is happening from, I suppose, a government and media point of view is really fueling that division. And it's really sad because, you and I both have the belief that we're all one. We're all in this thing together. We're all a fragment of the one consciousness, if you want to call it that. So it's sad to see a lot of the division.
It's like I can't remember if I've mentioned this on here or not, but I came across something the other week, and it was, if the body is walking along and it stumbles because the foot doesn't take a step and the hand hits the ground and gets a graze on the hand doesn't yell at the foot and go, "You fucking stupid foot, you're the biggest wanker," and it understands that it's all part of the one organism.
Yeah.
And we are all part of the one organism, us humans, and so it's like the hands yelling at the foot.
I know, I'm imagining them like fighting each other,
I'm going to kick you, well I'm going to punch you.
But God, stop it! That's one of the most beautiful, teachings. Like, we hurt someone else, we hurt ourselves.
Exactly.
We're kind to someone else, we're kind to ourselves.
I am you and you are I.
And experientially, for me, that feels very true.
Me too. But so, going back to before, because we haven't had a lot of stimulus, because our needs haven't been compromised, because we haven't been conditioned, we haven't grown up in a war-torn country, we haven't grown up in famine, we've got access to everything, too much, I think. And so, there's an expression out there, harden up or don't be so soft, and I'm not going down that path, but I think we have softened in our resiliency. It doesn't mean that we are weak or that we are soft, but I think the minds aren't as strong and as healthy as perhaps they once were.
Yeah, well, they've, I suppose, like anything, it gets used to conditions, it gets used to an environment, and then when that environment changes radically, it's a shock to the system. That's why, we ask a lot of people, older people who, were around through, a really bad recession or the Depression, or who went through, wartime.
Is that going to Gallipoli? 17-year-olds.
It's like, how are you coping with the pandemic? Like,
what pandemic? Is there a pandemic?
You kids, you had it too easy.
It's like the dude, I've told you this story, playing at Mount Martha Golf Course. I was playing just by myself, and I turned up and it was a bit overcast, and I'm like, oh no, I should get a few holes in, and caught up to this old bloke and just got chatting to him. He was easily mid-80s, right? And it's just 150 metres off the tee, straight as an arrow, 150 metres up the guts, just playing bogey golf. It was incredible. And it started raining, and I've dived into my golf bag, pulled out all my wet weather gear, jacket, pants, umbrellas going up, and he just stands there and he's watching me. And he turns and goes, "What are you, made of sugar?" As in insinuating the water was going to melt me.
Melt, the wicked witch.
And I had nothing. I was like, fuck. And I just had to pack it all up. Umbrella went down, walked around in the rain, and it left such an imprint on my mind. And this is the power of the mind. That memory is very vivid for me because it was a very powerful moment and experience.
Yeah, I remember my brother is bringing up a memory for me. So he's 14 years older than me. And so, growing up, like, such an age discrepancy, but he was amazing. He was like my hero, and he would always, I didn't appreciate it as much at the time because I was a kid, but looking back now, like, when you're 19 and your brother's 5, it can't be a hell of a lot of fun to kick the footy around with him or play cricket.
Yeah.
But I can't remember a time in my head when he told me no.
Yeah.
And we would have these footy games, and it happened a few times. There's some old photos of it when it would be like today here in Melbourne, it'd be just pissing rain. And I'm like, I want to kick the footy. He's like, all right. And we'd go out there and just slide around in the mud for like hours, and we'd come in just everything soaked in mud. But I remember it was just such a happy time for me. And I've been trying to, with Tommy, my boy, trying to catch myself as well and trying to reframe, because normally, we might go outside for the first time, and he might be like, oh, sunny or windy, and normally you'll like praise, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, but then you'll try and catch yourself today when you go outside, you're like, oh, it's a rainy day, but instead kind of go, what a beautiful rainy day it is today.
I had a Skype session with Dan over in Canada, and it's nighttime there, and he said, how are you? I'm like, oh, it's terrible, and I didn't even get to finish the word. I was about to say it's terrible weather, and I went, it's really stormy outside.
It's such an automatic program, isn't it?
And but I guess the training that we've done, we're able to be mindful of what we're saying and to catch it.
That was a beautiful cup of tea, by the way.
Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I feel great. I'm like a new
Buddha
man.
tea. Buddha tea.
I have Buddha nature now.
And I think our house got struck by lightning this morning.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
Were you shocked?
Oh, I was all lit up. Strike me down. That was terrible. So I wanted to talk about the power of the mind. Yes, because of what's going on, but just to bring it to people's awareness, bring it to people's conscious awareness a bit more. And if we're not present and working with it, and in Buddhism they talk about cultivating an equanimous mind. So cultivating, you've got to create it. It's like cultivating a garden. We can't just sit idly by and just expect this thing to function. Many people in here, the one golden rule at the top there, I am responsible for my happiness and health. And I say to people, what's the definition of happiness? 80% of people would sit there and go, and they start laughing. And I'm like, what is it? And we both start laughing. And they're like, I've got no idea. I'm like, no one's got a fucking clue.
It's like I have this desire that I want to be happy, but I don't even know what happiness is.
Exactly.
Good luck with that.
And so it's to be content, but then we talk about the two types of happiness, because people sit there and go, do you want my definition? I want the given definition. And so we talk about outsourced, getting what I want happy. It's a beautiful day, in inverted commas, or just inherent happiness, and the weather can be however it needs to be, and I'm still okay.
It's kind of conditional happiness versus unconditional happiness.
Very much. Intrinsic versus extrinsic.
Like, I'll be happy if, or I'll be happy when
X, Y, and Z happens, then I'm okay. So,
which means that if anything else happens outside of X, Y, and Z, then my peace is disturbed.
So we've got these parameters of acceptance.
Yep.
I will accept that the weather is nice and I will feel happy, but we can't control the weather. So what happens when it's outside those parameters of your acceptance?
Yeah.
And this is the mind creating this. It's the mind creating these biases, these opinions, these values, whatever you want to call them.
It's like, I think it's like when the sense of I gets involved. Like you said, the word equanimous, and a lot of people go, well, I can't be equanimous. Like, I don't know how to. But the truth is, they're equanimous about most things. It's like, how do you feel about Saturn having rings?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's all right.
I'm at peace with that.
How do you feel about, there's a worm, 6 feet underground about 100 kilometers from here and it's giving birth at the minute? How do you feel about that? I don't know, I don't care. Look, it sounds cool. Then it's like when you're at the shopping centre and you see an ex-girlfriend who things ended really badly and they're with another guy. You equanimous? No.
So what's the difference?
It's the closer it gets to this sense of I, this psychological self that wants to keep itself together. Nick's getting up, everyone. If you're not watching, what's he up to? Oh, here we go. Ego, rigid, irrational, immature. I must get what I want. Yeah. Yeah, same thing.
It's all there, buddy.
It is. It's this structure that wants to sustain itself, and so we're equanimous is about most things in the universe until I gets involved.
Well, so there's two things. No, look up there as well. The source of all suffering is attachment and ignorance. So a worm giving birth, a kilometre away, we're ignorant of the fact that that's happening. So we're not going to be affected by it. So it's not in our consciousness. If it was, and somewhere along our programming we had been led to believe, or a belief had been imposed, or we created in a moment of trauma a belief that worms are gross and horrible and I don't like worms, if we formed a bias...
I want them to be extinct. I wish it wasn't giving birth. Where is it? I've got to find it.
And so that's an attachment to that irrational belief. It's such an irrational belief, and it's coming from the I, it's coming from the ego. So it's it's what do we know, how much do we know, or what you said before about you getting, what did you say, what word did you use, heightened or triggered by social media. Activated, wonderful word. When you're getting activated, it's because you come into contact with it all and aware of it all. So we talk about sensitivity in two ways. That's the ego sensitive, the I is activated, or our energy is activated in a different way. So empath, very affected. I'm very mindful of the nutrition I'm putting into my mind because I have to be. It's like I'm a celiac mentally or whatever. I can't have certain things going into my system.
Right.
Otherwise, I get activated.
Yes.
So that's the first time I ever put it in those words and framed it that way.
You're intolerant to certain things. You'll have an inflammatory reaction.
Yes, but once again, it's not an ego intolerance. It's not a mentally constructed bias. It's more of an energetic intolerance. And so it's really important for people to understand the two separately.
Yeah, and it's another story is coming up about this, talking about the worms. And I think I remember Michael Singer talking about he was with this lady in the car out near his property and all these grasshoppers, or she started freaking out. She goes, what are those things, jumping around the window? He goes, oh, they're grasshoppers. She goes, oh, I hate grasshoppers. I don't like them. And he noticed her getting an activated state and everything. And then as he looked closer, he goes, oh, they're not grasshoppers, they're,
cicadas or
something like that. And then all of a sudden her system completely calmed. She's like, oh, that's okay.
They're like first cousins once removed from grasshoppers.
But you were only activated because of a belief that it was something, and so we're not seeing reality.
It was a magical moment. I was sitting in that chair there doing work with a client. She was sitting here, and she's talking about her fear of spiders.
Yep.
Now, phobia is an irrational belief that leads to an irrational behaviour. And this tiny little spider came down here and looked right in front of her, and she started getting heightened. I was like, okay, what is the reality? Because instantly she was gone. She was in those distortions up there. And I said, what is the reality? And she's like, oh, hello. I said, woman sitting on couch near very small spider. Are you under threat? Is this thing going to kill you? Is this an appropriate response to have in the situation? She's like, no. I said, do you understand you're being highly irrational right now? That's without a judgment. She's like, yes. I said, okay, now's a wonderful opportunity for you to start pulling yourself back and to start grounding yourself. In reality, this thing doesn't have... I said, give it a name, as we did with you.
Yeah.
Daryl the spider. Oh, hi, Daryl. What are you up to? I'm just cruising from the ceiling to the floor. Okay. Not about you. No, I'm just going to bypass you. I'm on my way. I'm just part of nature. You're part of nature too. We're all here together. Great. I'll see you later. And it was just this amazing experience. And
she said, spider teacher presented itself at the moment.
The spider teacher arrived. And I was like, oh, so beautiful. Such a beautiful thing.
I had a session last week, and it was so interesting. We were obviously on Zoom, and they were up in like a bush kind of region, and for some reason they were outside doing the session, and we had a chat. Then we were about to jump into a kind of a healing work that I do, and she got bit by a bull ant.
Look at the video. Look at us. We're totally in rapport right now. We are totally in rapport. We're mirroring.
And you know what? That was beautiful, unconscious rapport.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how we roll. Sorry, but
that's how we sit, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, she gets bitten by a bull ant. And I'm like, she's like, oh, it stung, and she had to get some ice. And I'm like, that's just so random. I've never someone get bitten by a bull ant. And then I just, like, off the cuff, I like have a bit of a joke about some spiritual things. I'm like, oh, after the session, you should look up what that means. You know, getting bit by a bull ant, the spiritual reason. And then we do the session, and the session was all about having the courage to go for your goals and everything. And we worked on, you know, why she didn't have the confidence and blah, blah, blah. And then we get off, and like 15 minutes later, she goes, "You're not gonna fucking believe this." And she sends me a screenshot of getting bitten by a bull ant, and it's like, impediments to your goals that you want to achieve and lack of confidence. Yeah, it's so funny.
So I sent you in the text when you said what's on, and I said power of the mind, and I said manifesting, the illusion of reality, the placebo effect, those sort of things.
Oh, let's talk about placebo.
No, let's talk about manifesting. That's the first one.
All right.
Let's talk about illusion of reality, because it's the in-between one.
All right.
We'll meet in the middle.
Let's meet in the middle.
As any good couple does.
Oh, God.
We're in a relationship.
Oh, we are.
We are. Illusion of reality. I don't know about you, but I do a lot of work about breaking down people's illusions that they've created, because it's usually based off a very irrational foundation. Yeah, the projector has got very old reels in it and projecting this very old illusion, and the ego has been heavily involved. So clients' feedback is that it's their favourite session after the fact. It's not good when they're in it. It feels very uncomfortable. A lot of people struggle with it initially, but once and what we're doing is I'm breaking all of the lenses they're looking through, all those distorted lenses. So the black and white, the personal, the labelling, the should, all that, and grounding them in the reality. And so they're seeing things clearly for the first time, as the Buddha did. You know, it's just, I'm seeing the nature of things. It's the nature of the spider is to, you know, come down from the ceiling on a web and to the ground and to crawl off. That's all it means. But the woman that was sitting here is looking at that through such a distorted lens and applying all this meaning to it. And that means I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Does it? Daryl, are you going to kill this woman? I don't care about her one bit. She's not even on my radar. I'm going to get a drink of water. All right, Daryl, on your way. Thanks for teaching. So this is the power of the mind. This is the mind will create this illusion, and it's I don't know, I just really want people to understand how critical it is to have that awareness of what the mind can do, and then the awareness of what it has done.
And then start to question, you know, if you're not specifically coming to see someone like yourself, Nick, who can really objectively, you know, and we recommend you do that. It's being able to question these things that you believe, because you'll start to see the falsity of 99% of them. Because you said, you know, we decide that X, Y, and Z has to happen for me to have some sort of idea of happiness. And so we take the experience of life and it gets just really narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is this ego structure, and this is where all of those cognitive distortions that you love talking about come in, because anything outside of that reality, then we start to get a bit funny and weird. And if we start to break down that ego structure, it is very uncomfortable, because it wants to maintain itself. It wants to stay together.
That's familiar.
It's familiar, exactly. And all these, even a belief like, you know, I must be loved, which is one of the three amigos that you talk about. So that belief causes so much suffering.
Yeah, it's understandable why someone would want that.
Of course. But that belief causes a lot of suffering throughout a lifetime. And the thing is, that belief wants to continue. It wants to confirm itself and solidify itself. So it is uncomfortable when we start to challenge and break these ideas of self down.
But when that belief is coming from the ego, it is insatiable, and there won't be enough love in the world to satisfy that belief.
No, it's the hungry ghost.
So it's going to be a constant craving, a constant, you know, desire for it. Now, we can still have the belief. We can't have I must be loved. We can still have a desire to be loved, yeah, because we're humans, and that's what we do. But as long as we're not forming an attachment to it. So I can still desire to go for a walk today, right? I wake up in the morning, I'd like to go for a walk today. I'd like to go for a walk today. It's not I have to or I must. There's no rigidity about it. I've got room. There's freedom there,
Yes.
and I can go to the front door and look outside, and it's bucketing down and thunder and lightning. It gives me the freedom to go to adapt and to change. And you go, oh, okay. The weather's not aligned with going for a walk, or maybe it is. Maybe I'm like a little Ryan. I want to go and slide around in the mud, but I have that freedom. I have that choice there. Where if I have a concrete belief that it must be sunny, if I get to the front door and it rains, oh fucking hell, stupid weather! This always happens to me. What, I'm never going to get fit.
This always happens to me.
Yeah.
Like there's a very good reason. You have to study meteorology for a very long time, but you'd understand exactly why it's raining at that moment. But for someone that says, like, imagine the whole universe over 13.8 billion years has conspired for it to rain on this particular day, and you say, this always happens to me.
This is the illusion of grandeur.
Well, this is not economy. I can't be equanimous about the weather because it happens to me.
Yeah, but that's a distortion. You're taking it personally.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the weather through a distorted lens. You're looking at reality through a distorted lens, and your mind is doing that. I was once unable to leave my house because I was looking at the world as terrible, dark and doomy, and just so afraid. And the anxiety did a wonderful job of keeping me safe, but it wasn't healthy for me. Yeah. So it's really difficult, uncomfortable, but it gets easier when we start exploring our perception that we've got. Like in lockdown, Victorians' freedoms are being compromised. And we can understand we've had it good for so long, but we're still okay. We can still get around a little bit and do things. We're not in Afghanistan. We're not in a concentration camp. We're not a prisoner of war. So once again, when we step out of it and look at it objectively, we can go, all right, it's not. No one's asking for it. It's not ideal. It's very inconvenient on many levels. I can't go out and have a beer with Ryan at our favourite pub, but it's just but I'm still okay.
What is our favourite pub?
I don't know yet. I knew that question was coming.
Maybe we need one.
Maybe we do. Let's find
Let's explore.
Okay.
There'd be some good ones in Mornington.
Totally. There's a good Irish one.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
Goes back to my roots, my ancestry.
To be sure. So, okay, so that's...
I know we're going to run out of time here, but I'm a firm believer that...
Can you message your old mate and tell him you'll be late?
Yeah.
Or was he fixed?
She.
Sorry,
everyone. Look, we're going to go pick up a fridge after this. But I'll just message him...
For Ryan's man cave.
For my beach box man cave.
All right, well, I'll dive into manifesting while you do that.
Go for it.
And then you can come back to your story. Manifesting. So people have, what are those called? The vision boards. And when I was studying, I learnt, and I don't know how they come up with this percentage, but I'm going to use it. 96% of what we do happens subconsciously. So that's a very large number out of 100%.
It's most of it.
96% of what we're doing, we're on autopilot. We're not actually conscious. I didn't consciously choose to move my hands then. That was just happening. So it all comes down to that programming again. And we bring into our lives what we focus on. Like when we're playing golf, don't hit it in the water on the right, don't hit it in the water on the right. You're focused on the water on the right. Okay, you're saying don't, but your mind doesn't hear the don't. It just hears water on the right. Hit it in the water on the right, and 9 times out of 10 it'll go to the water.
Well, that's important to note for people, because a lot of people don't know that so much of our life where our subconscious is being programmed all the time, and one of the the ways that it works is that it can't process negatives.
Yeah. Which
is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
and sorry, just on the golf one, I was actually watching those tailor-made videos. There's actually some good ones, but obviously they have the best players in the world, and they were having to hit a hook shot around some trees, but obviously if they hit it straight, there's water. And it was interesting because they said how they'd play the shot, and they played it, and then the guy who was doing the video kind of said, and so what, there wasn't the worry about the water, and literally both of them go, I didn't even see water there. So they don't let that just cut. All they saw was green and flag.
But they visualise it as well. So they create it internally first, and they manifest that shot externally.
But it wasn't like, it was really authentic. It wasn't like a bullshit thing. It just, like, one of them, like, I think it was DJ, just said, "Oh, I didn't even see water there." And then Matthew also, "I don't see it either." It's like, really? That's like where you were aiming, but it's like, it's not in my reality.
So a lot of what we're doing in here, the first step to change is awareness. I'm trying to help clients create more of an awareness, so to reduce that 96%. And even if it's only by 1%, that's a win. So what I've trained myself to do is to listen to what I'm saying a lot of the time. And I've heard myself lately saying, when someone says, "How are you, Nick?" my automatic response has been busy. And I heard myself say it 2 or 3 times, and I was like, what happens if I keep saying I'm busy? I'm going to develop a belief and reinforce this belief, because we become what we tell ourselves we are, that I am a busy person. Is that aligned with how I want to be? No, I don't know. My motto, my mantra is to live life as slowly as possible. So it's the opposite.
No, it doesn't match up, does it?
No, it doesn't match up. So this is what we need. We need to align our subconscious with our conscious mind.
Yes.
We need to align our programming with our goal. And so I can only do that when I have the awareness that it happens. So now when someone says, "How are you, Nick?" I say, I'm very fortunate because I'm working with a lot of people and we're getting a lot of great results and doing a lot of amazing work, and I'm just in awe of what people are achieving and a deep sense of gratitude. It takes a lot more to speak about that, but the feeling of being fortunate and grateful feels so much better than busy. And busy, to be honest, is just a very lazy word. It's just, "How are you?" "Yeah, busy."
Yeah.
And it sets up a barrier. "Oh, Nick's busy. I can't go and talk to him then." But you can come and talk to me.
Yeah.
So,
it's like, I want people to talk to me.
Totally.
But I'm busy.
Yeah.
Come talk to me, but I'm busy.
Yeah. I want to live life as slowly as possible and be as present and as mindful as possible. But I'm so busy.
I'm so busy.
I'm too busy to live life slowly. I don't have enough time to live life slowly.
You're saying, like, if you can help someone improve by 1%, and when you think about it, I know the numbers are a little bit arbitrary, but let's just, for the sake of it, just say, look, let's say it is 90.
Helps the context.
Yeah, for context, let's say it is 96%, but then you improve that by 1%. That's actually a 20 or 25% increase in awareness, which is actually life changing. Because if you go from 4% to 5%, that's actually on the scheme that's I think a 20% increase on what you had. So that's life changing.
Very much so.
That is absolutely life changing, just by becoming a little bit more aware of what we say and what we do, because then we get to make some choices.
So the bottom one there, the Dharma Wheel, that represents the Eightfold Path in Buddhism, the fourth noble truth. It's the way out of suffering, and there it's right speech and right mindfulness. So when we're mindful, when we're aware, when we're conscious, when we're present, you can't hear yourself. If you haven't trained yourself to, but if you're bouncing between the past and the future, if your mind is raced off into the future and you're thinking about everything else, or you're back thinking about what happened this morning and someone says, "How are you?" you're not present to consciously choose what to say. And so you're up shit creek.
You're up shit creek. So what I was going to say before is that, we're looking at an illusion. So I believe that we're all living life through some sort of illusion. So then the question then is kind of, what illusion do I want to live? Is the illusion that I'm living as if you just finger went straight through me then.
Oh no, that would be amazing.
I do that sometimes with the wall. I still do it like it might be like once every couple of months, but I'll just walk up to a wall and I'll be like, go to push it, and I'm like, nah, it's solid.
My first ever memory is as a child trying to fly on the front nature strip, and I still to this day hold a small belief that I think I felt a little bit of hovering for a period of time.
Oh, that's awesome. So like, we're all living in illusion. So it's like, is my particular flavor of illusion, is that serving me? And for a lot of people it's not, because you've got all these cognitive distortions, this rigidity in place, which is causing the unnecessary suffering that a lot of us are going through.
And we've spoken about this before. There's a massive misconception out there that we all live in the same world. We don't. We live on the same planet, but we all live in very individual, unique worlds.
Yes.
So you and I are sitting on the same couch, but we're having completely subjective experiences.
That's right.
And so Em and I were talking last night, and we were just talking about differences and the different natures. So we've got human nature. I must be loved, perfect, and get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But then we all have these individual natures on top of that, and we use spirit animal guidance to highlight people's nature. And so I'm a turtle, she's a butterfly, and I said it's really important for us to keep in mind to not try and change people's natures, because I want you to be more like me, or to experience life more like me, or it will be easier for me. It's just okay. You sit there and tell me this is your experience. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. That's your experience. It's different to mine, but I'm going to not let the ego get involved and say, oh no, but you should see it from this perspective.
Yeah, it's like I'll get excited about something and I'll drag Mel, you got to see this, got to watch it. She couldn't give a crap. And then I'm like, oh. But it's like, like you said, we're all got a different reality. Someone could listen to this podcast for the first time and go, wow, this is fantastic. I love this. Shout out to our Iceland listeners. But then another person could listen to it for the first time and be like, these guys are full of shit. This is the worst podcast I've ever heard.
Shout out to our American listeners.
Who are these wankers? And so...
That's the one word Americans don't use, I think.
They find it funny when we say it.
If you did a poll of Americans, I think 1% would know the word.
That's
wanker.
why it sounds funny when they say it, because they'll hear it's what's a wanker? And so who's right? The person who loved it or the person who hated it? Who's right?
There's no right.
No, there's no right. That's exactly it. There's no right.
Duality.
We live in footsies.
Oh. Well, we've got this duality going on.
And there's no right or wrong. We're seeing things through a different filter, a different lens. We're seeing a different reality, and we need to respect everyone else's reality, but also respect our own reality, because a lot of people, I think, as well...
But check your reality.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. And so a lot of people as well, we get a little bit lost and we lose this...
If you lose yourself in the moment, you better never let it go.
You
only got one shot.
You only one shot. You lose yourself in a moment, but then kind of get lost for a long period of time. And I see so many clients who they had their experience invalidated at a young age normally, and so they spent the rest of their life judging. My fridge person said it's okay, 3:30, so we've got a bit more time.
I've been given permission.
Yes.
See how your happiness was outsourced then?
I didn't care if we stopped or not, but that just came out of me. And so, what the fuck was I talking about?
You lose yourself in the moment.
And so a lot of people, a lot of clients, and they kind of lose themselves. Their experience was invalidated when they were younger, so the rest of their life, their subjective experience is very much based on what other people have told them about them.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's like if I'm feeling like really... I'm like, I feel so good today. I feel like I'm really attractive. And then you get to work and someone's like, oh, you look really tired. Then you go into your shell and go, yeah, I look like shit. Or, someone, you'll feel like you're doing really well with, at work logistically. And then someone says, oh, you haven't done that properly. It's like, oh, I'm shit at this, I'm shit at work. And so what happens, our world then becomes a conglomeration of what other people have told us, which is really, really sad, because we lose that confidence and self-respect.
Placing value on someone else's illusion. And
yes.
Another Stoic quote is, he who is properly grounded within himself does not need to look outside for approval.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. But to give the listeners something to work with, perhaps it's in terms of this manifesting, set your goal, not an expectation, set the goal, and then align what you believe, and in turn what you think, and in turn what you're doing with that goal. But really got to keep checking and rechecking, because the mind's nature is to run away and to get up to all this mischief and find reasons why it can't do it. It loves a good limiting belief.
Absolutely. And why the whole manifesting thing got a bit funny, because like The Secret came out and people talking about law of attraction, and the thing is, if you hold something predominantly in your mind, you'll get it, because your life and your actions will naturally kind of head in that direction. It's like
What's an example for you? What have you manifested?
Well, fucking hell. A great partner, a family, money, having a great business, being off drugs. Hey?
Can I lend $10?
If you want.
I want to manifest $10.
There you go. But there's the thing. If you wanted to manifest $10, then you asked me and I gave it to you. But a lot of people just have this thing, well, I'll just sit here and do nothing, and then whatever I think about will present itself to me.
I call it working with the universe or meeting the universe halfway.
Because if I want to, that's like, we manifest everything. If I want to go to the shops, I'll literally picture myself getting in the car, going to the shops, and then that will happen. If I want to play golf, I call up and make a booking. It's like, I'm like, I want to play golf today, but then I don't call up and book, and I don't go to the golf course, and I sit there and go, why aren't I playing golf right now?
You're helping people understand the difference between manifesting and hoping.
Yeah.
It's wishing and hoping is different to actually manifesting. Manifesting, you still have to put time and energy into it. I had the same thing when I separated from my last relationship, and I was like, right, this is cool, but my next partner, if and when it ever happens, I'd like it to be someone sort of in the similar field to me, really funny, maybe even someone I've known for about 10 years or so, and just really beautiful inside and out. And then I don't know, a couple of months later, Emma pops up and ticked all of those boxes, and I just laughed. I was like, fuck, I've got to be so careful, because if I'm manifesting that consciously, what am I manifesting unconsciously?
Yeah, because it works in both ways.
Totally.
But then you're like, the way that beliefs can get in the way. So let's say that I have this idea, I'm single, and I have this idea of this girl that I want to meet, and I'm like, it feels very vivid to me, and there's emotion attached. Then all of a sudden I'm at the local sports club or a bar or something, and I see like the exact girl that I've envisioned. And I'm like, holy shit. But then I go to walk up to her, and all these insecurities and everything come up, and I have this deep-seated fear of rejection, so I turn around halfway and go back and sit with my friends. So it's like you were presented with what you were trying to manifest, but you let those insecurities and beliefs get in the way.
So this is the power of the mind, okay? The mind can manifest that, but then it can also block you from accessing that, is what you're saying. I had this client the other day saying, I want to lose weight. And I'm like, okay, great. What are you doing about that? What do you mean? Well, so you're actioning it? Are you putting a plan into place? And she's like, I keep finding myself going to the bottle shop. And I'm like, okay.
Are you running there? Or?
And I said, why? She goes, I am weak-willed.
Ah, right. Okay.
Fell out of her mouth.
Yeah,
she verbalised an unconscious belief. And so I went, how's that working for you? I am weak-willed. And then we broke down and we got her to open it up, because it was very concrete, I am weak-willed. So we got her to question it and then find something that would work for her, because that wasn't. And she said, all right, so now I have self-control. And she played around with that, and then she locked that. So now I said, okay, we've planted that seed, but you've got to water it. It's not just, a belief just doesn't magically, grow it and form that new neurological pathway. You've got to actually grow that shit. And so now it's an opportunity for you. Every time you consciously, mindfully, deliberately catch yourself turning towards a bottle shop in your car, that's where you go, no, I have willpower, and turn the steering wheel the other way and keep going past it. Every time you do that, you strengthen your mind. That's what I was talking about earlier. And you start growing that neurological pathway. And do it enough times, the pathway is going to connect, and it's going to light up, and magic will happen, and all of a sudden it doesn't even need to be conscious thought. It's just something you automatically do. Yeah,
it's so interesting to notice when those sentences just fall out of someone's mouth. That's why a good therapist is great, because they'll pick it up. Because normally we say it, we're talking about unconscious, and we're like, we'll just say stuff unconsciously.
So many times I'll reflect it to a client, and I'll have no idea they've even said it.
Yeah.
That's why the Zoom sessions are great, because I record them, and then clients can go back and listen to it, and I say, I want you to catch all of the times you did it. I've marked it down here, and I want you to mark down how many limiting beliefs, and still then they often miss them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you can oftentimes, if someone says that to me, I stop and I'll have them say it again, but this time with the eyes shut and to see where that lands in their body.
Yeah,
and they'll really, because when you see how it lands in the body, you can see whether something feels true or false for that person. And so if I close my eyes then and go, I am weak-willed, and if I really believe I'm weak-willed, it's like the whole body just goes, yes.
We use a traffic light system, and so get the visual minds to light up green, red or amber, depending on the strength of the
Right,
belief.
okay, yeah.
And so they'll, I am weak-willed, bang, big green traffic light goes off, and they're like, yep, no, that's true. Okay, cool. And because this is, once again, the subconscious is turning that light on, not the conscious mind. And so we keep saying, keep questioning it until it turns amber, and then to keep doing it until it turns red.
Yeah.
And so now it's sort of, we've dug up that belief, and now we can put in, I have self-control, and go through the process again, but in reverse order. It's red, now it's amber, I'm starting to get it, okay, it's green, it's found a home.
Great, I love that. And
But we can't put, I have self-control. We can't put that on top of I am weak-willed, because I am weak-willed will still be the driver, it'll still be the underneath it, and that's still what it'll create.
That's right. And one thing you can do if you're listening and you maybe catch yourself saying one of these beliefs is you can also think of a time in your life where you displayed the opposite. So you can find contradictory evidence for that. So that in that instance, she could find an instance where she wasn't weak-willed.
She's
and
a firefighter.
Exactly. So what happens? It's part of some of the research on memory reconciliation or whatever it is. Anyway, if you can find the contradictory evidence for a belief, then you have, for the next 24 hours or so, those neurological pathways are quite open.
Yeah.
It's created this degree of uncertainty around the belief.
So that's why it starts with a full stop, I am weak-willed, then we put a question.
I am weak-willed, a statement.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a question.
It's concrete.
I am weak-willed?
But this is what we do. I say now, so read the first line, I am weak-willed. Read the second line, I am weak-willed. And they reinforce it, and we
still
piss
a
ourselves.
statement.
We piss ourselves. I can't express how many people struggle to read it as a question. It's amazing. It blows my mind every time, and I have to teach them how to read it. No, there's an inflection there. It's I am weak-willed. Your voice needs to go up a little bit, and you need to question it. What? I am weak-willed. What, am I an asshole? Am I weak-willed? And it takes 10 minutes sometimes to get them to...
Yeah, well, it's probably been said in the mind as a definite statement thousands of times.
It's concrete. So every time we're getting them to try and ask it as a question, we're just smashing it with a sledgehammer and trying to break it down.
Yeah.
Finally, when they've laughed enough at it and they're finally, I am weak-willed, then we can bring in the new one. It's mind-blowing, mate. It's so funny.
I love it.
But it's beautiful because it shows them that, once again, they can get in the driver's seat, and so many people are living life in the passenger seat just on autopilot with these expectations or desires to be over there, but the subconscious is taking them over there.
Yeah, because a lot of people have this idea that, let's say it is I am weak-willed, and it's like, well, I just must have been born weak-willed and I'm going to be weak-willed until I die. But it's just a story, it's a narrative, and we've told it so often that it feels and becomes very concrete. But we can change these at any time. We can change our reality.
I love what you said earlier about contradictory evidence, and because I say to clients all the time, it's so important that we start questioning our beliefs, start identifying, start playing around with them, but then making sure that they're based on evidence. So, you need something to support it. Otherwise, it's just a... Yeah.
Well, with clients, if it's kind of a trait, so I'm a very firm believer that all human beings have all human traits. We've displayed it either somewhere in our life today or somewhere in the past.
That's an interesting sentence. I am a firm believer. I am a firm believer.
It's my experiential...
No, you deeply believe.
I do.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm yet with myself or with people I work with, I'm yet to be proven otherwise. And so...
Challenge accepted. Hold my beer.
And so, Well, I heard Dr. John Demartini years ago talk about this, and he said, well, we disown certain traits because we minimize ourselves because we don't have it, or we turn away from them because of shame.
Yeah.
And he said, and he's a very... he went through the dictionary. I can't remember. There might have been like 1,300 traits, and he went through and goes, I've got them all. And then I started doing sort of the same from that moment. So if there's a trait in someone that I admired that I feel like I didn't have, I'd find out where I displayed it, and the opposite if there's one that I judged. And so with clients, I'll always, whatever we're working on. So an example, last week I had one with confidence, and it's because this is what the words are. I don't have confidence. And it's like, and I didn't even need to bring. We started talking about something.
And it's just a belief.
That's right.
That's all it is.
And so she was talking about, not being able to take the next step and having all this fear come up in these different areas. And then she was talking about her work as a teacher and how she was all afraid beforehand, but would step out in front of a class and she goes, I could deliver the content. I knew if I got questions that I'd be able to come up with an answer, or I could research it with them. And then I said, it sounds like you're pretty confident up there. And then she's like you could see kind of the, yeah, you're right. I'm like, so we don't lack that trait. Right. And so that's like an opening. And then we start to jump into why we don't feel confident.
You've put in there a circuit breaker. And so it's sort of frazzled her wiring a little bit, and she's now having to start thinking, because it's actually difficult to think. People talk about thoughts, and there's a lot of mindless thoughts rolling through, but it's difficult to stop and think about things because it takes effort.
Yeah. And
being present to do so, and most people just aren't present.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons we're talking about the unconscious 96% is because conscious thought takes up a lot of energy. Like our brain takes up, what is it, like 70% of the whole energy of the body, which is heaps.
Lots.
It's lots. So like real conscious thought does take up energy, and I've spent periods of that real conscious thought, and I've been wiped. I could have been sitting in a chair for 2 hours, but then afterwards I need to lay down because I'm wiped.
I had the same experience, so that's where then I took the next step and went into mindless mindfulness. And it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's I was talking about it with Dan today, and Mel popped up with the Akashic Records, and we were talking about holding all of these thoughts, and all of we're talking about all the stuff I want to do for work and all the content I want to create, and it's been piling up in my mind, and I said I finally got to the point where it was just consuming too much of the memory bank. So I've got an external memory drive and just put in the Akashic Records, and I'm just trusting that it's all going to come out when I need to. And so I don't need it consciously right now, and it's so freeing. It's just like the computer. If your memory is full, your computer's going to go slow. When you do a memory dump or clear a lot of old shitty files or whatever, it frees it up to the processor to work much better, and all of a sudden you go 1 + 1 = 2. And our minds are so similar to that.
I've felt that as well. Sometimes if something pops up for me and I feel like I do want to remember it later, I might just send myself a little voice note. It's just very easy. But apart from that, for me, I have to learn just to trust.
Trust is the word.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like, because there's so much stimulus and information coming in, and we have all these ideas, and I'm like, well, I've got to, sort this shit out, or I'm going to forget it.
Once again, trust comes from a belief. I believe that my mind will recall that information when I need it, when it's required. But for now, I don't need it. So it takes more strength to let go of that information than holding onto it out of fear of not being able to recall. So if you're holding onto all this information, you're going to be living in a state of anxiety, which is not healthy.
No, it's not. No, and I think, when you can have that trust, it is freeing. And then that trust can build on itself, because when I, for myself, started trusting, and then maybe I was on a podcast, like a guest or something, and then something pops up, and I'm all of a sudden like, oh yeah, I heard some really good information on a podcast like 4 years ago about that, and I could talk about it, and I'm like, it's all up there for when I need it.
Stimulus is going to ping the recall button in her head, and your mind is going to go back. Have you seen that? What's the Pixar It's a cartoon. It's all about the mind. It was developed by psychologists.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. They go get like the memory bubble things.
So there's going to be a ping, and some part of you will go, "Yep, got the signal. Going to go back into the records and pull out the filing cabinet. Here it is," and give it to the vocal cords, and the vocal cords will be, and it'll just produce it out there. So it's fucking amazing how.
I haven't. What's the fucking name? I've never watched it, but when we started the centre, we used to get clients.
Let me Google it.
Clients would say, "You have to watch this show because this is kind of what you do in the therapy." And I'm like, "Oh yeah."
I used to get clients to watch it to explain what it is.
Right.
In the therapy. Can we go into a wheelhouse that I believe is very aligned with you?
I love going into a wheelhouse.
I know you do.
Hit me with it.
Let's go down this rabbit hole.
All right.
Placebo effect.
Yeah. I love talking about this. Well, yeah, because this is it very much. This is in my wheelhouse. So this is very much aligned with the power of the mind, and I've researched a lot of like Dr. Joe Dispenza and something who've dedicated their lives to trying to understand the placebo effect. Because the thing is,
Inside Out, it's called.
That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. Well done, Nick. We've got a little research thing now.
Yeah.
And so, every single scientific study, when trying to prove efficacy of whether it's an intervention of some sort, it could be a medication, has to test itself against placebo.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the hell does that mean? Well, in order for it to get approved or recommended, it needs to show statistical significance in improvement over placebo. But then what does that mean? It means that roughly 30% of all improvements, healing, whether it's physical conditions, mental conditions, all of that can be attributed to the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
That's heaps, 30%.
Not as much as 70.
No. We're doing good maths today.
Totally.
And so what is that? It's like, well, people were given either none of the intervention at all, or if it's a medication, they're given a sugar pill. So there's nothing in there that will mechanistically change or improve their condition, yet the power of the mind makes them get better.
I love listening to you talk.
And so, me too. Lucky you do, otherwise this podcast would have finished a while ago.
Well, you're so opposite to me. Like you're so intellectual. I'm more intuitive, and I love that you know all this stuff and you did it. It's percent that percent. It's like it's like doing a podcast with Rain Man sometimes.
I wish I was that good at gambling. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Cards. So yeah, I'm very interested. So people like Joe Dispenza have just said, well, hang on, let's not just sort of brush over this and go, oh well, that's the placebo, that's the mind doing it. Yeah. Let's study that. Well, that's amazing. And he talks about it's not just that the mind thinks that we are going to get better and we do, but our mind literally, like let's say it's a substance, our mind will literally create the biochemistry in our brain and our body that mimics the drug or intervention that it thinks it's going to get.
Have you seen Darren Brown?
No.
Go home, go down the Darren Brown.
Who's Darren? Is it Darren or Darren?
D-E-R-R-E-N. Darren Brown.
Yeah.
If you're listening, grab yourself a beer, sit down when you get a bit of you time, put up Do Not Disturb and go down the Darren Brown rabbit hole on YouTube.
Alright.
He's a mind freak, hypnotist-y sort of dude.
Actually, I think, now that you mention, I reckon I haven't gone down the rabbit hole, but I reckon I've heard him maybe on a podcast or two interviewed.
Amazing at his craft and what he does. But he went into a pub once and just hypnotised people and said, looks like you've had 32 beers. You look really drunk. Power of suggestibility. Person was absolutely sober, hadn't touched any alcohol, started acting super pissed, and they said afterwards, I felt really drunk.
Yeah.
So, just that, I guess the introduction of that stimulus is a placebo.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
Of course it is, yeah. And one of the really interesting studies that I love is they took these elderly people, because they're talking about environmental stimulus and everything, and obviously they were old and aging in certain ways, and they put them
That's
in
what
this...
old people do, they age.
I think we all do, don't we?
Yeah. As soon as we're born, we
Not
start
just
dying.
old people.
As soon as we're born, we start getting old.
Young bucks like us wouldn't know about that. So they put these elderly people in this new environment for a period of time, might be 3 or 4 weeks, and took all their, vitals and measurements and everything. But what this environment was as if it was the 1970s.
Oh.
So literally all of the decor was 1970s.
Oh.
The newspapers they were getting were from the 1970s. The shows on the television were from the 1970s.
Wow.
So everything was from the 1970s. After the period they were in this house, they obviously, gave them physicals and everything. Their blood pressure went down. But interesting thing, their joints started to grow again. They started to get longer fingers. They got a little bit taller because their body was started to believe that they were younger.
They're 50 years younger or something.
Yeah. But then they took them out of it and they all started aging quite rapidly.
How
again.
amazing.
So I think it's amazing. And one thing as well, I think did you put in there that there's the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. And so the placebo effect is when, the power of the mind and the body is creating this benefit for us. And this probably ties into what you were talking about earlier when you were like, geez, I've got to be careful if I can consciously manifest this. What the hell am I unconsciously manifesting? And the nocebo effect is when we direct things in the other way. And, back in ancient tribes, you'd have, let's say, the soothsayer or the witch doctor, and someone in the, they'd cast a spell on someone in the tribe, literally like a spell, right? And people would die. They would die.
You heard of the woman who got diagnosed with cancer, and they said it's really aggressive cancer. You've got a month to live. She died within that month. They did an autopsy, no cancer. It was like Darren Brown hypnotised her and killed her.
Yeah,
That's how powerful our minds are.
They are, and one of the things I've read about as well is these crazy religious people and everything, and they will literally, because they'll say it's the power of God, and there's one group that will drink strychnine poisoning enough to kill someone a number of times, and they'll be fine. They won't die.
What about
because they believe it so much.
The evangelists. I'm in a wheelchair, wheel him up on stage, and he's blind and he's missing all his limbs, and the pastor or whatever is, God is coming through, and you can walk and you can see, and and they literally stand up out of their wheelchair, and the place loses its fucking mind, and they're like, hallelujah, Jesus. You wonder how much of that is bullshit and how much of that is suggestibility. And
there's an element of both of those things. But when you have, and that's why when someone has such belief.
So hang on, sorry to cut in. It's I'm just creating this story in my head. So there's this I'm picturing a church in Alabama or somewhere, and it's shout out to our listeners in Alabama, and there's a pastor or a preacher or whatever, and he's behind the scenes, they're right, we need 3 dudes in wheelchairs first that can actually walk, and then a 4th that can't walk, and we're not going to tell the 4th one that the first 3 are duds, so that's just going to start creating this illusion and this power and this energy. And so the first one up on stage, you can walk, and the 4th dud is watching them. Right, and you can walk. Oh my God, he starts to believe that maybe I can walk. And then the next one comes out. You can walk too, out of his wheelchair. That belief gets stronger. 3rd time, belief gets stronger. So by the time he gets up on stage, maybe I can walk. And I wonder what would have to happen physically. I'm not saying he would walk, but I'm just saying I wonder what would happen. Could nerves reconnect?
But then, as soon as if he started to realise that it was a sham, then he would revert back. There's stories.
Well, that happens when I got hypnotised at a stage show once, and the dude wanted to experience a stage hypnosis when I first became a hypnotherapy. I wanted to see what the other side did. And so I went to a stage show, and it was, I allowed myself to go with it. And every time you drink a beer, you're going to roar like a lion, he said. So, and it was so interesting because I was observing myself, and on some level I knew that I was not a lion, but I was still roaring like a lion. But then that's when it wore off, when the critical mind kicked back in, and it was like, you're not a lion.
Yeah, there's another story I read about, and the guy had stepped on, or something happened with a nail, but a nail went through his boot and up through the top of the boot, and went to the emergency department, and the dude's fucking screaming. Like, it's all over, screaming, like agony pain, like kind of thing. And then they end up, taking his shoe off, and the nail had gone between his toes. Yeah. And they said, "Sir, there's nothing going on here." And as soon as you look down, the pain disappears. Yeah. Yeah?
I was driving to golf one day, and I had the window down, going down the highway, 100 kilometres an hour, and I felt this whack on my neck, and I looked down in my lap, and there was a bee. And when I was younger, I stood on a bee, when I was probably 6 or 7, and my whole foot blew up. And so I was told I had a bee allergy, and I was allergic to bee stings. And so I've looked down, and so my initial thought was, my mind created a link, an association back to that childhood memory. Foot blew up, and then I was like, neck might blow up. What happens if the neck blows up? Can't breathe.
Asphyxiation.
I can't say it.
It's a tough one. I went to say it, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this.
Asphyxiation.
There we go.
And so I actually pulled over and started meditating, and just went into this deep state. And I was like, I can breathe. There's nothing wrong. Whatever chemicals have been introduced in my system are just going to dissolve. And I pictured like a dropper going into an ocean and just diluting and everything, and pulled myself out of it and drove to golf and played a great round. Yeah. So I don't know whether I cured myself or not, but on some level, some part of me tells me what I did was very important.
I completely agree.
I was just managing that experience.
We're going to get the fridge. We're going to be late again.
Let's go get the fridge, man.
Awesome. All right, that was good. That was fun.
Yay. Power of the mind, people. Be aware of it. Be careful of it. It's a double-edged sword. It can create amazing things, but it can be very destructive, as a past version of me found out once upon a time. So don't just sit there and expect it to behave. You've got to train it, got to cultivate it, got to condition it. So, I'd love to hear some stories of what your minds are getting up to.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Peace.
Peace out.